Good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Soraya Mia. Malaysia rejects all forms of violence against innocent civilians in armed conflicts, as decreed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. He says this includes the bombing of hospitals and schools, as well as disruption of food, water, and electricity supplies.
As a sovereign and independent nation, the king said it was Malaysia's responsibility to reject forms of violence that violate international humanitarian norms. He was speaking at the 13th convocation ceremony of Universiti Pertahanan Nasional Malaysia, UPNM. In light of the ongoing armed conflicts, he called for UPNM to become a focal point for promoting understanding of international humanitarian law. The king, who is also the chancellor of UPNM, said higher education institutions play a crucial role in producing future leaders and defending the country's strategic interests.
Malaysia's third batch of humanitarian aid for Palestine will be shipped on December 18th. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi says this involves 60 tons of various goods coordinated by the Foreign Ministry.
Kita harap keperhatian rakyat Malaysia ini dapat diteruskan kerana kita lihat bahawa asakan lebih ke selatan di kawasan Gaza ini amat menyakitkan dan kezaliman ini masih diteruskan oleh pihak Zionis dan kita tidak boleh hanya melihat tetapi kita harus memberikan bantuan yang berterusan kepada rakyat Palestin khususnya yang berada di Gaza yang terus dikenakan tekanan oleh pihak Israel.
Malaysia, through the humanitarian mission dubbed Ops Isan, has been delivering aid to Gaza since last month. The first shipment of medical supplies, baby items and food arrived on November 10th, while the second shipment of aid reached Egypt on November 11th. Zahid urged the public to continue contributing to Palestinians through government-provided platforms to prevent leakages.
Meanwhile, Zahid Hamidi says UMNO is not open to working with PAS again for the time being. The president said his party would not open the door to this possibility again after its previous cooperation with PAS.
Ahmad Zahid's comments came after PAS Deputy President Datuk Seri Tuan Ibrahim Tuan Man said his party was willing to forge cooperation with UMNO again through the Perikatan Nasional platform. He maintained that the party had never set aside the agenda of promoting unity through the Ummah. UMNO and PAS had joined forces after the 14th general election to form the opposition Muafakat Nasional Pact. However, tensions escalated after PAS joined the Bersatu-led Perikatan Nasional coalition.
On to other news, the Malaysian Institute of Microelectronic Systems, or MIMOS, clarifies that it will not collect any user data through the My Digital ID system. Its chief, Dr. Saad Shukri Embong, says the system is only used to verify user identity for logins to government platforms and transactions.
Saad said the system only compares the information within a MyCard and a user's fingerprints with existing data held by government agencies. He added that the platform was highly unlikely to experience data breaches, while cases of identity theft would also be minimal due to the verification process before the digital ID is issued. He also explained that when users register their information at a My Digital ID kiosk, none of it is stored by the system. MIMOS was appointed by Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim to develop the National Digital Identification System. The Prime Minister was the first to register for a digital ID on December 1st.
Prasarana Malaysia Berhad, or Prasarana, is aiming to enable credit and debit card payments at ticketing counters at all rail stations by July next year. It said this includes such payments for the My 50 Travel Pass. In a statement, Prasarana said they would also be introducing an open payment system for all rail services by the fourth quarter in 2025. It added that the My 50 Travel Pass, only available to Malaysians, can be purchased at all rail stations using cash or QR Pay, at key bus hubs using cash, or online via My Rapid Shop. the government introduced the capital gains tax and luxury goods tax under Budget 2024 as part of its taxation reform measures. How are they perceived by the public, and what are the impacts they have on certain sectors? So Lian Seng, head of tax at KPMG Malaysia, weighs in.
The perception, I think, when we talk about the introduction of CGT, not only increases the country's revenue collection, but also seek to reduce any perceived inequalities between different income groups by ensuring fair treatment between taxes of business profits and capital gains. So I think that by fostering a fair and balanced fiscal environment. But when you talk about any impact to certain sector, obviously currently we are waiting for certain details on the exemption from the CGT. And as everyone knows that this exemption in relation to restructuring within the same group, IPO approved by Bursa and ventures capital companies, of course subject to condition to be stipulated.
As for the luxury goods tax, Lian Seng highlights the challenge in setting up a threshold for luxury items in Malaysia.
In the context of Malaysia, setting the right threshold for different goods itself is already a challenge, as we have a different culture that may have a different views on what is considered luxury. So more importantly, on the subject of retailers as the one of the economic sector, for example, the Prime Minister's speech did not specify the threshold for the high value goods that will be subject to tax. So it remains to be seen whether this high value goods tax will generate significant enough revenue to narrow the fiscal deficit, or it remains to be seen whether the luxury goods tax will give an immediate boost to the tax revenue as the scope is limited. So there has to be a balance between the additional tax revenue collected and the impact on certain sectors, in particular the retail, and the cost of compliance on companies.
We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more.
Konflik Palestin-Israel memperlihatkan dunia zahir sokongan pada Hari Perpaduan Antarabangsa bersama rakyat Palestin.
3 jumlah negeri sudah pun terkesan akibat banjir, antaranya adalah Terengganu, Kelantan dan juga Selangor.
Berkenaan dengan SPRM beku akaun NGO Aman Palestin penyelewengan dana RM70 juta ringgit.
Berkenaan dengan penipuan pakej umrah, polis terima lebih 300 laporan yang melibatkan kerugian 14 juta ringgit.
Welcome back. Tens of thousands of Palestinians were fleeing heavy Israeli bombardments on Wednesday as Israeli military tanks pushed deeper into the center of Han Yunis. After bombarding the southern city overnight, Israel says its troops are in the heart of the city. Meanwhile, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees warned that the situation in Gaza is getting worse each minute. The agency said people fleeing have nowhere safe to turn, as all shelters are already beyond capacity. Gaza hospitals are also struggling to cope with scores of Palestinian dead and wounded. The number of functioning hospitals in Gaza has dropped from 36 to 18 since October 7th. The Israeli army also intensified its attacks on the Jabalia refugee camp, an area repeatedly targeted since the beginning of the war, with massive air raids and relentless artillery shelling. The death toll in Palestine increased to over 16,200 since the war broke out. Meanwhile, Indonesian rescuers continued their search today for the last hiker missing after a volcanic eruption that killed 22 others. But 3 days after the disaster, hopes are fading. Hundreds of rescuers have been working for days to find the missing hikers who were carried down the mountain in body bags. Rescue efforts have been hampered by further eruptions and bad weather, forcing workers to intermittently take shelter. Mount Marapi on Sumatra Island spewed a 3,000-meter tower of ash on Sunday as 75 people were hiking in the area. 52 people have been rescued since the eruption. The volcano was still sending a plume of smoke into the sky as of Wednesday morning. The death toll from a bus accident in the Philippines has risen to 17 after another seriously injured passenger died today. Officials say 7 people remain in critical condition, while 4 are stable and recovering. The bus was carrying dozens of people when its brakes failed and it plunged 30 meters into a ravine in the central province of Antique on Tuesday. It is the second bus to fall off the same winding road. Rescue operations at the site were suspended this morning after all visible bodies had been recovered. The local governor has pledged government support for the medical and funeral expenses of the victims. A woman was killed and a man and teenage boy were wounded in a shooting in East London. The woman, 42, died at the scene and the 20-year-old man and boy, 16, were taken to hospital. The shooting happened on Vine Road, a small housing development in Lower Clapton, Hackney, on Tuesday. The Metropolitan Police launched a murder inquiry, but no arrests have been made yet. Authorities said they were still in the early stages of the investigation, and a team of specialist detectives are working to establish what has happened. They assured that officers will remain at the scene overnight and will be in the area over the coming days. Gun violence is rare in Britain, which has strict gun control laws. "2023 is set to be the hottest year on record after November became the 6th consecutive record-breaking month. According to Europe's climate monitor, last month broke the previous November heat record, pushing the global average temperature in 2023 to 1.46 degrees Celsius, warmer than pre-industrial levels. November included 2 days that were 2 degrees Celsius warmer than pre-industrial levels, a first in history. There had been several warnings that this year could take the title of the hottest year from 2016, especially after records were broken in September and October. Scientists say data from ice cores and tree rings also suggests that 2023 could be the warmest year in more than 100,000 years. Global temperatures in the second half of the year are thought to have been driven in part by the El Niño weather pattern. The announcement of the new record comes as negotiators from nearly 200 countries gather at COP28 in Dubai to debate the text of a final draft agreement following stocktake of progress in limiting rising temperatures. Now, the World Health Organization has called on countries to raise taxes on alcohol and sugar-sweetened beverages. It says the average global tax rate on these unhealthy products is low, suggesting that raising taxes could lead to healthier populations. In a statement, the United Nations Health Agency said 2.6 million people die each year from drinking alcohol, while more than 8 million die from unhealthy diets. It said introducing taxes on alcohol and sugar-sweetened beverages would reduce these deaths and encourage companies to make healthier products. Although 108 countries have some form of taxation on sugar-sweetened beverages, the global average of excise taxes is just 6.6% of the price of a soft drink. Half of these countries also tax water, which the UN agency does not recommend. That's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Soraya Mia, and good night.